In this video, we're going to have a look at how you can transform the default and standard tables that you use in Power BI into something like this, where at a glance, your users can dissect the information that you have in your table. All of that and more. So without further ado, let's get started. Hi, my name is Fernan, and welcome to the Solutions Abroad YouTube channel, where we cover tips, tricks, and best practices when working with Power BI. I upload new videos every week, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell icon to get notified when a new one is out. So one of the most basic visuals that you can use in Power BI is a table. Now, it's not the sexiest visual that you can use, given the fact that you have so many other options available to you that are more eye-catching. Tables are really good at showing data in a structured format, where the information that you're trying to convey is dense. And if you work with data, working with Excel or within Power BI, you probably have seen your fair share. So today we're going to look at some of the ways that you can improve the look and feel of your tables. So this is an example of a table that you can generate in Power BI. So using the default settings and formatting. In this table, we're trying to show the total sales for all the products that have been sold across different countries, along with the categories of those products. In this dataset, we're using the Northwind dataset as usual, which is a fictional company that sells goods internationally. So quick recap on the datasets. If you're not familiar with what we're using here, we have a combination of tables. We have order details listing out the orders and what products were ordered within them, how much they cost per unit, their quantity. And I've also added a total sales here, which simply just calculates the total sales for each of those products. We have the orders, which contains the order dates when those orders were made, and the customer ID, which links to our customer table, which has information in turn about the country of origin for those customers, so we can track where those sales were made in. And then we have the categories, which is linked to our products, which is just a list of products that we have available for sale within the Northwind traders. I've also pre-created a calendar table here, which is simply a calculated DAX table, which is what we'll use for our time intelligence purposes. So this is how the model looks like. So as you can see, it's pretty standard, but this is not the focus of the demo for today. So we're gonna just leave it at that. So now that you're familiar with the dataset, let's move back into this table here. So using the default settings of a table to visualize this information. Now, while it shows a lot of really useful insights, if you sort and filter this, I would argue that there could be a few improvements you could make to the presentation of this data here. So the first thing that you should probably think about is to choose between using a table or a matrix. So you typically would have that option here on the visualizations pane. So it will be next to each other, table or a matrix. The general rule of thumb that I follow from here is if I need to group columns or rows, or if I need to create a pivot table, for example, I would choose the matrix just because it gives you that element of being able to control your columns and rows independently. Otherwise, if you need a simple list of data, you would simply just use the table. Now for this video, we're going to go through tips and use matrix as an example, but most of the tips that we'll have a look at will apply to both types of visuals. So I will try to distinguish wherever it's possible. So pay attention to this table as I change it into a matrix. So you'll see that instead of just columns on the right-hand side, we have three different wells that it's created for us. So we have rows, columns, and values. You'll see that for rows and columns. So we're just going to adjust this a little bit because products make sense to be just below the category. And then we'll put country there on our column like this. This is the key difference with using a matrix. It gives you the ability to add layers, which you can expand or collapse either on the column level or on the row level. As you can see here, you have some options here to collapse or expand for each of our categories. So you can see the individual sales for all the countries across all of the different products. You can leave this ability for your users to expand or collapse different categories if they need to. But you also have the option to disable that if you want to make sure that the interactivity is minimized. So you can change those settings here on the formatting pane in the visualizations tab. So we're going to search for icons, which you will see here. If I disable that, that will prevent your users from being able to drill down to those products. Just bear in mind that that doesn't stop them from using these drill downs on the top right of your visual, so that will still allow them to collapse or expand. So the first few things that I look at improving when I use tables in Power BI is to adjust the formatting, that is the style of the tables themselves. So you can see as a default, it's using some sort of alternating color for each of the rows, which I tend to dislike just because I want to use colors with intention, which I'm going to show you in a second. So for now, I'm going to choose none or minimal, which changes the style of the tables, but you can choose whichever ones you want. So we're going to leave it to none for now. Another thing that you can do is to rename the row headers or the column headers that you have. So if you double click on the fields in the field well, you are able to rename them as you like. So you can control how they are showing up on your table and also when you hover over your values. Now, this doesn't change the field name of your fields within your datasets. So if you look at category, for example, that stays as category name. So this is purely changing the name in the context of your visual, so you don't have to worry about messing around with your dataset. I also like to add some sort of padding between my data just to give them a bit of white space in between each other. So if you type padding here, you can add a few pixels to the padding, which adds a pixel above and below each of the values that you have in your matrix. So this is just a good way to add some white space in between, as I said. If you're using a matrix, you will have a lot of options that are automatically enabled for you when it comes to totals. So you have column subtotals, row subtotals, or your grand totals. Now you have full control over which columns or which rows you don't want to show the subtotal to. So if it doesn't make any sense, you should think about disabling them so that you can save some space on your visual. The next thing that I do for my tables is to add context to them. So while it's good that we're showing sort of dense data like this, it's not so easy to decipher, especially at a glance, to see, let's say, which categories sold the most in which country, right? And especially if we had it drilled down by product. So under cell elements, you will see that you have the ability to apply conditional formatting to your tables. So there are a few visual options here to choose from, but let's choose background color, for example. So as I turn that on, you can see how that table changed for us. It started to add a gradient showing us which countries and which categories sold the most across all of our total sales, which you can see already at a glance. It's almost like a heat map for you to know which products or which categories or which countries are selling the most. If you click the conditional formatting icon here, the FX icon, you will see that we have a few options in terms of format style for our conditional formatting. So at the moment we're using the gradient based on the total sales. So you have a few options here like setting certain rules. So for example, if you want to show if, let's say, total sales have gone above a target or if they are below targets. Or if you want to get fancy, you can even use field value, which you can hook up to a DAX measure, which you can control conditionally using your own custom logic. I have a video covering in detail how you can take advantage of conditional formatting within your Power BI reports. So if you haven't seen it yet, go check out that video. Another thing that you can think about to add some context to your tables are what we call sparklines, which is a new feature that they released just last year. And sparklines can be pretty good at showing the trends of, let's say, your sales at a glance using the same table here. So let's go to our visuals pane here. And to show you how easy it is to create a sparkline, you go to your values well on the bottom right here. You click this arrow and say add a sparkline. Now it will say to us what is your y-axis, which is what we want to show on our sparkline, and then the x-axis, which in this case we're going to choose the calendar table, and we want to show what is the trend across a year, month, x-axis. So if I create it, so this table not only shows us the highest selling categories by country, it also shows us its trends across a certain period, which is super useful if you want to get some information at a glance. You can also use tooltips to further enhance the information you give on your tables. So as your users, for example, hover over values here, instead of just getting the data that they can see, you can add some more context to it. So let's say we want to see the sparklines to actual values and not just these small line charts here. We want to see the actual values on a year-month basis. Let's have a go at adding a tooltip on our table that we've just created here. So I'm going to create a new page here. I'm going to change it to a tooltip. So canvas settings, I believe. Let's see. I'm going to change it. The type is a tooltip. It just adjusts our canvas to be smaller. So now I'm going to just zoom in a little bit, and then I'm going to add calendar year month like this. And I'm going to simply add the total sales, which should be right here. I'm going to change it into a bar chart just to keep it simple for now. So now it just gives us the total sales throughout all of the history for our company. So I'm just going to do a bit of formatting here to remove some elements, like redundant elements, like titles. I'm going to add data labels. And let's just leave it like that for now, just to keep it simple. So we're going to drag the measure total sales down here into the tooltip fields. Dragging it on this well means that any visual using this total sales measure will be able to see this tooltip if enabled. So I'm going to hide this, and we're going to go back to our first page here. I'm going to zoom out just back to normal. And I select the table. Under Format Your Visual, let's have a look at enabling the tooltips. General, enable tooltips here. And instead of auto, we can choose the page that we've just created. So now, as you hover over these sparklines, you will get the values that you want with more detail, as opposed to just getting the sparkline values. Last but not the least, redoing all of these formattings to all of my tables every time can be very time consuming. So I make sure that I take advantage of using themes, which you should do if you haven't yet. This allows you to make sure that when you create new visuals, like for example, creating a gradient type conditional formatting or new sparklines, that it uses your corporate brandings and themes so that you don't need to reassign those colors again. And also with that tip, make sure that you are taking advantage of the format painter, which essentially allows you to copy the formatting and customizations that you've made from one visual across to another. And that's really it for some of my tips for today. There are other things that I didn't cover in this video, such as using backgrounds as part of your tables to further enhance the look and feel of your tables. If you're interested in that solution, Ruth from Kerbal has already covered that, so I'm gonna leave a link to it somewhere in this video, so go check that one out if you're interested. Thanks for watching. As usual, give this video a like if you found it useful. Give it a dislike if you didn't, so I know to do better for next time. Ask your questions in the comment section box below so I can help you and you can help others. If you like this video, we have a Patreon page where you can support the channel and get exclusive perks like early access, demo files, and credits at the end of these videos. Thanks again for watching and see you in the next one. Bye bye.